The Backrooms is a collection of infinite empty rooms that exist outside of reality, accessible through various glitches in the fabric of spacetime. Our story begins with a young man named Leo, 19, whose life revolves around three things: mycology, the study of fungi, prime numbers, and routines. He dislikes the color yellow, loud noises, and metaphors. Every Thursday for the past 419 weeks, Leo has visited the mycology section of the Worcester Public Library. On this particular Thursday, he arrives at precisely 6:53 p.m., the exact moment when the library's fluorescent lights would stop humming their usual tune and be replaced by the high-pitched whine of an unseen machine. As the lights flickered, the air grew heavy. The room began to spin, and the bookcase in front of him dissolved into a shimmering portal. When Leo fell through, he only had time to register one thought. There was something very wrong with the fourth dimension. He landed on a cold, damp, carpeted floor amidst an oppressive silence. Looking up, he saw that the portal had vanished, leaving him stranded in a long, empty hallway. The walls were a sickly yellow, the only light emanating from the buzzing fluorescence overhead. As far as he could see in either direction, the hallway stretched endlessly. Leo stood up, brushed off his clothes, and began to walk. He tested his phone and found that it had no signal. Hypotheses raced through his mind. Was this a seizure? Had he fallen into a dream? Was he being kidnapped? But if so, why was he left alone in an empty hallway? He ruled out all of the above. This was a puzzle, and puzzles required focus. Using what he called maze logic, he placed his right hand on the cool surface of the wall and began to walk forward, memorizing every crack, every scuff mark, every blemish. After 17 minutes, the pattern began to repeat. He was moving through identical rooms, each separated by a solid yellow door. But there was more to these rooms than met the eye. In one of the rooms, Leo noticed black mold growing in a perfect spiral pattern along the baseboard. It shouldn't have been growing in that shape. Biologically, it was impossible. Just then, he heard a sound, a wet squelching coming from behind the yellow door. Without panicking, Leo counted the doors. Those, 4, 6, 8. He opened the 8th door and walked through, keeping his eyes on the wall. He couldn't afford to get lost. In the next room, he found a playing card lying on the floor. It was the 7 of diamonds, slightly bent, but otherwise undamaged. Clearly not part of the decor. Someone else had been here, but who and why? As he continued his exploration, Leo found other cards, a total of 7, all removed from the same deck. They were arranged in a sequence that made sense only to him. Leo realized that someone had played a trick, leading him deeper and deeper into the labyrinth. But the real maze, he knew, was his own mind. He was autistic. Unlike most people, his brain didn't filter out all incoming sensory data. Everything registered, every little sound, every tiny movement, every scrap of information. Most people adapt and learn to ignore the background noise. But for Leo, all input was equally important. That's what made the Backrooms so terrifying. There was no background noise here. There was no gentle lull in the sensory assault. It was all at once overwhelming. People he knew were unpredictable because he couldn't rely on their filters to protect him. He spent most of his waking hours preparing for possible interactions. What to say, how to respond, how to keep from getting hurt. All of that was exhausting. Sometimes it was easier just to stay home. He turned a corner into darkness. Above him, 2 lights flickered. They weren't attached to a wall or ceiling. They just floated there in the darkness like fireflies. Below them, stretching as far as he could see in the gloom, was a grotesque, disembodied smile. A wide, gaping maw of teeth. Leo wanted to scream, but he couldn't. His throat had closed up. Instead, he began to recite the prime numbers, trying to shut out the awful grin and the dancing lights. Those, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. It was his defense mechanism. A shield against the chaos. The lights above him responded by shifting from side to side. The teeth moved too impossibly, chaotically. There was no discernible pattern to their dance. And just like that, Leo's carefully constructed world broke apart. The numbers tumbled out of his mouth in a rush. 17, 19. 23. Panic seized him. The smile widened, expanding until it consumed his entire field of vision. Then everything went black. The grinding noise returned, louder than ever before, accompanied by a blinding white light. Leo felt himself dissolving, his limbs turning to water, his bones to dust. He woke up on a cold linoleum floor, sprawled beneath a vast, featureless sky. The yellow rooms had vanished, replaced by a huge warehouse. Shelves rose on either side, stacked with boxers, their contents long forgotten. Faint, distorted music echoed through the cavernous space. From the shadows, 3 figures emerged. Tall, thin, dressed in white coveralls and respirators. They exchanged brief, emotionless glances. "You stole it," one of them said, her voice distorted by the mask. "The Smiler." Later, Leo learned they were referring to the smile, the awful grin that had nearly consumed him. He also learned that he'd been brought here to a place called the Institute to help them understand the nature of the Backrooms and the entity known as the Smiler. But all Leo could think about was the corner. It had been a useless corner in the yellow room, holding nothing but a filthy piece of carpet and a cobweb. But as he looked at it now, something about it seemed off. Hoosed slightly, he walked toward it, mesmerized, and put his hand on the wall. Something soft and green snagged on his fingers. It was a thread, barely visible, almost certainly useless. But Leo pulled it anyway and watched with fascination as the wall opened up, revealing a dark, narrow passage. "Oh," he whispered, and stepped inside.